The one thing you could say about NAPWA and its history, its past, it's been characterised by change.
I think NAPWA's main achievement is survival.
My sense of NAPWA's achievements, I think absolutely around treatment, I think absolutely around naming, even developing the whole notion of treatment advocacy within Australia, and I think probably to a large part around the world.
Somebody from New York said to me, who was involved with the Treatments Action Council, they said, we look up to you guys in Australia of the model of how to do things.
And to be a strong force still for people with HIV, I find remarkable. I mean, they also survived the Howard years, and that was incredible because that government didn't like gatherings of people. It got all of its advice from individuals, and so organisations like NAPWA disappeared.
When it was first formed, it was called NAPWA, and it changed its name because we wanted to be an organisation that sounded like it was about torturing nipples.
Things that helped NAPWA survive were things like being driven by this anger about injustice, and that fuels kind of tenacity and strength.
There are two words that come to my mind. One is visibility and voice.
It's good to see the achievements of NAPWA.
It remains, as an organisation, connected to the community, and it's a peer-based network, and it is truly representative of positive people.
They've had to change their tactics and strategies over the years to stay relevant to their members and also powerful in advocacy, and they've been very good at that.
Care policies within the national strategy, was a clear way of pulling a whole lot of really diverse things together into something that sort of said, this is where we need to head.
I use the expression policy advocacy.
I mean, there's a lot of discussion around, kind of political influence and things, but it doesn't happen in isolation. I think, without a well thought out advocacy strategy, these things don't go anywhere.
It is the organisation that focuses on those older people who have serious illnesses related to HIV disease. There isn't another organisation that puts that on the national agenda.
NAPWA speaks for positive people, and it's made up of positive people. The other organisations speak about positive people mostly, and so its unique contribution is that strength that comes from saying we are the people affected and we're saying that we need these things.
In terms of the organisation that engages with big science and government and drug companies around treatments, it's NAPWA.
Well, I think that idea of visibility and voice is really what's come through for both the associate members and for the state-based organisations.
State-based groups can take their issues to a state level, but if they want to take something nationally, they have to have one voice. They can't be coming as a series of different states with different opinions, and so NAPWA's been able to manage that rabble in a way and get one voice out of it, and that's really hard in a diverse organisation like this one. But if you can take a single voice to government, and if you can be clear about what you want, then you usually get what you want.
What do we sort of get from a national org? I think practical support, as well as support around policy, writing papers, how to do submissions.
NAPWA, I think, has got a really proud tradition of being there and trying to give support and trying to help people get through those difficult times.
They've collaborated and set up partnerships.
I've seen lots of changes in the sector over the last few years.
Increasingly we've become involved much more in social policy as the social impacts of HIV become more evident.
The challenge there for NAPWA is to find its relevant place in all of that, because on the one hand we want to say that this is a chronic manageable illness. On the other hand, we want to say that we need support and we need services and we need all kinds of things. And getting the balance of that is really difficult, because you want your membership to be hopeful and you want governments and services to be responsive.
And I think it's really important to have an illness-focused organisation, as well as organisations that put HIV in context of how people live their lives.
NAPWA can't do the work alone, basically. It has to be done in partnership with those other national organisations and bodies.
This partnership model that we really foster here in Australia is something that has really been admired and adopted in many other parts of the world.
In terms of NAPWA in the future, well, I wish I had a crystal ball.
I actually think NAPWA has a bigger role to play in the future than it's had in the past.
NAPWA will and needs to continue its leadership.
That people who get infected now in 20 to 30 years' time are going to be 50 to 60 with a whole set of really important health needs that there's no organisation but NAPWA that will advocate around.
NAPWA has always stood out around treatments and around kind of really kind of good health quality care advocacy, and I think there's going to be a call for more sophisticated work in that area. A great part of the process is when people get together.
Hearing the experiences of other people who have gone down a very long path is always what keeps me going.
As a positive person for me, to recognise these changes for what they are, I had to see the changes in me, and that change that comes about in me is from the support from NAPWA.
You can be isolated, but you know you're not alone because you hear other people that have told their stories, and so when you can sort of be having a hard time, you hear their stories and you sort of think that makes a difference to how you cope or how you get through.
NAPWA as an organisation ran a leadership weekend last year, and I think if that leadership is going to be renewed, then it requires two things. It requires people continuing to tell stories about what they've done in the past, but it also requires people listening to those stories.
Someone said at one of the conferences in Adelaide, it was almost like a family reunion, and that's what it does feel like.
It's been great working alongside a lot of people who have got a real passion for activism.
It shows me that there is a role model and that outcomes are achievable for all of us.
Perhaps the 20th celebration is a way of continuing to tell the story about what has gone on in the past.